Okay, so guild raids. This content is a little complicated, so I'm making a video on it, especially since it's getting released in global in around 3 to 4 days. I think it should be like Wednesday to Thursday night. So basically, I'll be going about pretty much every single detail about this raid. So first of all, I'll explain what the guild raid is in general. Then I'll look over some topics like preparation for it. So not only the units, but also like how you plan on doing the guild, how you communicate with the guildies and stuff. Then I'll look over some teams and the best units for it. And then I'll look over the fight itself. So basically, I'll explain the mechanics behind the boss. I'll explain how the towers work, the mini bosses work, so you could always manage them properly. And I'll also take a look over all of the single attacks that the boss does, and basically which ones you should dodge, which ones aren't that scary. So yeah, first of all, what is the guild raid itself? So this is sort of a boss that you have to fight together with your guild. So you and up to 23 other people can enter the boss at once. And for us, there are 5 levels. For global, I saw that there will be 10 in total, but the overall difficulty should scale. So like the level 1 for us should be the same as level 1 for you, but the level 5 for us should be pretty much similar to level 10 for you. And instead, you'll just be getting more of these levels. However, they should scale a bit less than for us. So as you can see, level 1 for us has close to 12 million HP. Level 5 has a bit over 200,000, not 200 million HP. And yeah, the main purpose behind this boss is you have to kill it as fast as possible. And the level that you kill and the time for that highest level you killed will be placed in the rankings against other guilds. And as you can see, for us, we can clear the maximum level. However, we do it a little bit slower. So for us, it took 10 minutes to clear level 5. As you can see, other guilds have way better times. Now, for the guilds who cannot clear level 5, they will go below you. Doesn't matter what time you do. As you can see, even if a guild clears level 5 in 20 minutes, the next one will only be level 4, even if it's faster, because higher level has priority over that. And based on the rankings, at the end of the week, you will be receiving some rewards on it. So this reward goes to every player. It's not shared against the guild, meaning that if we're currently rank 4 to 10, each of us will be receiving 6 Half Magician pieces, plenty of guild coins, and some crystals. I'm not sure if Half Magicians are being released because they weren't mentioned in the initial notice, but I assume that eventually you will get her. And yeah, so for the boss, I'll show a fight that we've had at level 5. And for now, I'm gonna start with the preparation for the boss. And the first thing you need to know about this boss is it's very difficult to do with a few players, especially the higher levels. So you need to set a very convenient time for everyone in the guild. This means that you shouldn't try to aim and rush for it. I know that most guild on our server do it like Saturday or Sunday, when usually most people are available on those times. For us, we do actually 2 different groups. So we do the first 3 levels on Wednesday at around, I think it's pretty late for EU, but around evening for NA players. And the second batch of level 4 and 5 we do on Saturdays. Usually for NA that's around noon, and for EU players that's like towards the evening. So that works for us. We're able to get a lot of players that way and actually manage to kill level 5, but I'll make sure to communicate a very convenient time for everyone. See a time where as many people can join you as possible, because even those 2 extra players could mean the difference between beating the boss and leaving it with like 5 million HP. And if you do not beat the boss, those 2 players alone will definitely not be able to gather as much damage output as possible, because there are a lot of different boss mechanics which require extra players just to manage those. So if you are able to gather a lot of people at once, it's better to do that than to split them up into small groups of, let's say, like 10 players. And the second very important tip is to communicate the units that everyone is bringing. Without this step, the raid will be super difficult. For us, we have certain roles set up. So for example, Some people are going for full support roles, some people are going for tower roles, and in the example you will see me being on towers because I do have decent units for it, and I personally don't have a lot of units that do a lot of damage, stuff like Argen, so it's better for me to manage that stuff. And of course the third role is usually the damage role. So in this mode, because there are so many people fighting at once, you do not particularly need to go for the setups that you usually go for dungeons. Okay, so like let's say one support or two supports and one or two damage dealers, for example. In here, because there are so many supporting people, there are so many damage people, someone who is stronger, for example, can go for a 3 damage dealer team, whereas someone who may not be able to output as much damage can go for something like a 3 support team. So I know we have people who are going triple support, so you go Kina, because she's a support class, of course. Then you go something like Chloe, you go something like Croa, you go something like Windy, Bastet. All those units that can give support and don't require you to do damage, because even supports are needed a lot. And since they buff everyone around them, that way everyone will be able to benefit even from players who may be a little bit on the lower side of in terms of like power spectrum. And the second reason why you need to communicate those units is so you don't bring a lot of duplicate units with duplicate effects. So for example, you know that there is a Bastet event happening, meaning that a lot of people will have their Bastets build, but you also don't want to be only bringing Bastets into the raid. You need a variety of buffs and a variety of debuffs for it. So instead of bringing like 20 Bastets at once, it may be better to bring like 5 Bastets. And for other support units, you should be bringing different ones that do different debuffs and different buffs. So you will need attack buff, of course, but that will most of the time be easily achieved by Bastet. You'll need stuff like crit damage buffs, you'll need stuff like attack speed buffs to dodge those attacks, and this is very important. Dodging those attacks without attack speed will be very hard, so I do recommend having a few of those. You do want some safety buffs like shields, defense buffs, anti-crits. Those don't work always because the boss also strips, but they are important to overall survivability. And yeah, for debuffs it's the same. You do of course want the defense break as the main one, but you also want other buffs, not only that increase damage, but also just buffs debuffs in general, because a lot of the damage dealer units that will work very well, they scale with debuffs. And if you have 3 debuffs compared to like 15 debuffs, the 15 debuff boss will also die way faster due to the inbuilt scalings on some of these units, and I'll mention most of those units later on. And for regular people who are just fighting the boss, this is also a super important tip, is if you manage to die before the 5-minute timer is up, do not re-enter the battle. You must wait outside, because you only get 2 entries per level, and if you enter for the second time, for example, 2 minutes have passed and you have died, if you enter then, the rest of the people will only have 3 minutes left to fight, because the timers are individual, they're not team-based, meaning that you will be able to do well for the 3 minutes, but for the last 2 minutes, you will basically be left alone in the fight, and alone, trust me, you will not do any damage pretty much, and you will waste a second entry. So if you die, just wait in the lobby, wait for everyone to finish the run, the group set a good entry time for the second run and enter with everyone all together. Dying is not a problem really, as long as you don't waste your entries by just re-entering the battle straight away. And now this tip is important for my tower taking buddies. So basically everyone who is responsible for taking the towers, of course I'll explain how to take towers later, is do at least a little bit of damage to the boss, because first of all, the damage to guards and the damage to towers does not count towards the overall damage count, meaning that even if you enter the battle, if you do 0 damage to the boss, you will not be getting any rewards, meaning that I do recommend doing this for the first level, because those will of course be easier, even if something goes wrong. At level 1 or level 2, go at the boss, do at least a few hits on the boss, and then go for the tower, back to the tower managing later, because I almost did this mistake, and if you do 0 damage, you will beat the boss, like you will contribute to the team, you will be not getting any rewards. Other teammates who damage the boss will be getting them, you personally will not, so make sure to do at least a hit or two on the boss. Okay, and now a bit about team setup. So there will be pretty much three main things that you need to know about this boss. So the first of all is you do need to bring multiple strippers into this. Second of all, you will need plenty of support units, both for buffs and debuffs. And third of all, you will need a lot of damage units, and I would say damage is the main priority probably. Right after you bring a few strippers, so I will also discuss the units there. So starting with strippers, the boss does like to steal a lot of buffs from one of the allies, meaning that at times you'll notice that the boss has been debuffed with like 20 debuffs, and suddenly he has a large shield, he has like 15 buffs, and removing those buffs is a bit of a struggle if you do not have specific units for it. So for strippers, by far the best one is the Arachne, because she is able to not only remove all debuffs, but also apply defense break right after stealing them, meaning that you can set up for damage right after. And she is also able to steal those buffs, meaning that she will be pretty safe for quite a while. Her damage will be increased a lot, her sustainability will be increased a lot. So yeah, and she is a very popular unit that has been picked not only from banners but also selected summons. So she's an amazing unit, and this is the unit where you should build her if you haven't yet. A few other great options include other units that remove beneficial effects. So on the top of my head, the Light in the Army is a decent one. He has a strip of all buffs, as well as can provide some healing and attack speed up after that. Although he's not really considered a good unit overall, he does work. There's also Chivu, who I believe strips all beneficial effects with his third skill. There was one other unit, if I'm not wrong, let me quickly look over it. Okay, no, actually, maybe I don't remember. I know that Yana is also decent because she also removes all beneficial effects. I'm not sure how well she is into the boss itself, although she does boost the ultimate gauge a lot, so you will be able to ult a lot. So just look through either the move beneficial effects or the steal beneficial effects lists of units that are provided, and see what you have and build accordingly. The second thing you will need a lot is support. So first of all, for attack buff, this one is pretty easy. It's usually something like Shannon, something like Bastet. Other buffs that you will need will be attack speed up for sure. For that, you can look through units that provide it. I know that a few decent ones are Caiross, who is not only an attack speed buffer but also a crit rate buffer. What else is there? Bernard you will need because it also provides attack speed and movement speed, which are both super important. Chilling is a decent option, but I'm not sure how many people will have him built by now. Then another important buff will usually be the crit rate buff. Less units have that, but do still look through it. Again, Caiross, amazing buffer, so if you have him, make sure to bring him out. I think the water werewolf has it, an AoE one, but I don't recommend building him because other than this, he may not be the best unit overall. Then crit damage up. If you are lucky to have this, there is only one unit that buffs it for everyone, and it's Windy. So if you do have him and you want to invest into him, now is the time to do so. What else is there? So crit damage, no, we don't need that. Movement speed, of course, there's either Bernard or the Water Hog. Bernard being the better option because he is more, he provides more offensively. And yeah, damage dealt up, I'm not sure if a lot of units have that, so I'm not gonna recommend it. What else is there? Of course, you will need stuff like immunity, shields. I'm mostly looking for offensive options. For defensives, is of course, the more you can stack, the better. I'm just mentioning what is very important offensively. And for harmful effects, of course, you will need the basic ones like the defense down. You will need the damage taken up. You should be able to get damage, crit damage taken up, because the Wind Cat also has it. If not, again, Caiross, amazing unit. But Wind Cat should be more than enough. As long as you spam this skill, she will be able to stack those effects a lot. And yeah, for debuffs, that's about it. And now we'll look over the damage options for it. So the first unit that will be useful for this, and overall for damage units, you're basically looking for units that do regular damage, but also increase additional damage based on the amount of debuffs, because debuffs will usually have, with decent teams at least, will have like 10 to 15, maybe 20 different debuffs, and if you use units that scale with debuffs, the damage will be increased by a lot. So the most obtainable one, in my opinion, is the Windcat Naomi. She does not have an inbuilt multiplier, so while you should be spamming this skill on the boss usually, she does have a passive which scales with debuff, meaning that her crit rate and crit damage will be increased for each debuff. So for crit rate, it won't matter much because she will already have a high one, and this will overcap her by probably hundreds of percents. So that's not too important, but for the crit damage, this will increase her damage a lot, and if you spam this skill manually a lot, the damage will rise quite a bit. Another amazing and probably one of the best even units for the boss will be the Wind Argon. So this is probably the main reason why people were suggesting summoning him from the selective summons, is his damage is actually insane. And if you look at the third skill, you'll notice that he shoots 3 times, and this is per hit, meaning that his multiplier starts close to 1000% of attack, plus it scales by 150 for each debuff. And if you encounter a lot of debuffs, so like 10 to 15, that damage will go crazy, it will shoot up. You'll notice that if you are using an Argon and there is a guilty who isn't, their damage will usually be like 2, maybe 3 times higher than the rest. So yes, amazing unit, make sure to use him if you have him built. Now there are a few other options that scale with debuffs really well. This unit you will not have in global because it's a collab unit, however you might be getting it released soon. So this is a very similar unit to Argon. She has a very similar skill set to it, and her third skill also has a decent multiplier and it scales further with debuffs. There's also Crow, which is probably maybe even better than Argon, I would argue. Has a third skill which also scales with debuffs, and the amazing thing about him is all 3 of his skills are super useful, not only the third skill. So this is a very good unit to bring also. And the last one, pretty rare, there's a good chance you will not have it. So the Eredas, the Light Sylph, his second skill also has a scaling with the debuffs on the boss. The multiplier here is a bit low, but it also only costs 2 mana, so it sort of equals out if you compare it to the Wind Vampire or Crow. And yeah, for damage options, these are the main ones. Of course, if you do not have them, go for other damage options that you do have. However, keep in mind that if you do not have any of these and you notice that a lot of your guildies do, maybe it would be better for you to go on, for example, a tower beating role or a support role. So something like that. Just try to balance it out, talk with your guildies, see what each of you bring, so that you don't bring the same stuff. You bring unique buffs, unique debuffs, unique damage dealers. Or you don't need unique damage dealers, but damage dealers that work very well on the boss. And yeah, apart from that, we'll be looking into the fight itself now. So now that you have arrived at the fighting phase, this is pretty much how it will work. I will showcase you entering into the level 5. This is the first run of 2 that we did, because it took us 2 attempts pretty much for the full 5 minutes each to beat the boss. So this will show the first one where we dropped the boss to like 50%, and not only it will show a very successful run, I will also show you what happened wrong, and that way you will be able to avoid those mistakes as well. Because a very unfortunate thing happened with the boss, and the boss actually managed to ult, meaning that it's sort of going to run for the last minute of us. So yeah, once you get a shout that all of you should enter, and I do recommend having a very specific time when you enter, like up to the second, or at least have someone in guild chat announce that you should be entering right now. You go to the guild raid, you enter the level that you have communicated with. As you can see, people will show up how many people are in here. Basically, you just jump into the raid and all of you will arrive at this sort of pre-lobby. Now the first thing I recommend about this is do not jump right away. This is what we do actually. When you enter the lobby, I recommend waiting for everyone to group up here. You don't need to wait for like everyone, but because you don't want to be losing a lot of time, but give it like 10 to 15 seconds and try to group up here. You can do some initial buffs like the movement speed so you could reach the boss faster, but just try to wait in one spot, be ready to jump, be close enough that you can click the jump button whenever it's needed. And yeah, once you're here, a lot of you will group up and someone can start jumping in. And the first thing about jumping in is don't all jump at once. I recommend only letting one person jump, and the reason for that is because whenever the first person jumps up, the boss will shoot an attack that roots everyone in place for like 5 seconds. And if a lot of you jumped, all of you will be rooted and you will not be able to move anyway. Instead, what you can do is let one of the people jump. He will be rooted regardless, but if you jump right after the attack, you will actually be able to move towards the boss and will be able to reach the boss way faster than if you were rooted. So to do that, basically let someone jump in, and by the time the boss starts shooting this big circle attack, you can start jumping in, because right after you will see that you will not be getting hit by that attack and allowing you to reach the boss way faster. And now for the main mechanics of how the boss works. So ultimately your goal is to drop the main boss to 0%, that way you beat the stage. However, it's not as simple as just attacking the boss. The first thing you do when you start the boss is you actually go to the right side to this tower, and you will need to kill this guard. This is super important. If you don't kill this guard, your run will probably fail in like a minute. So trust me, this took a lot of planning for us to do, because we weren't too familiar with the mechanics at first. So I'm informing you that this pretty much half of your team, if not the full team, should go for the guard first. This is super important. You will not be able to beat the run otherwise. Once you go for the guard, you have to quickly kill him. The guard isn't that hard to kill as long as you have a lot of people. So as you can see, we managed to beat it in like 5 seconds or so. As long as you stack some debuffs, it will be good. Then, after the guard is killed, this tower will be unlocked. So basically, you will need me to be hitting either this or the next tower. I'll explain which one to hit in a second. So this tower is basically a gauge reducer for the boss. If you look at the top, you will see this little circle right here, and it has two phases. It has the light phase and the dark phase. Whichever phase the boss is in, that phase will be slowly filling in during the battle. So right now the boss is in the light phase, and as you can see, as we attack, the phase will be slowly creeping towards the dark side. This means that your goal in the fight is to balance out both of those sides, and you don't need a lot of people to do so. Usually 1 or 2 will be enough. I managed to do it solo for this run. Previously we had 2 people, but that was also because my team was a bit meh for towers. So now that I've improved on it, I was able to keep up solo on it. And for the towers, basically, this is the dark tower, and if the gauge starts creeping up too much towards the dark side, if you hit this tower, the energy will be balanced out a bit, and the dark side will push the light side a bit away from it. So as you can see, the light side is pushing quite far into the dark side. So you hit the tower, and once the tower drops, you will see that the energy has been pushed by like 20%, I would say, towards the middle. And your ultimate goal is to basically balance out in the middle. You do not ever want the energy to reach one or the other side too much, otherwise the boss will ult and he will enter this sort of phase called the enhance phase, meaning that he will do way more damage to you and you will do way less damage to him, and this buff is permanent. So until the level is over, that buff will stay, and if it happens on the higher levels, it will pretty much be impossible to beat. So yeah, don't let it take over too much, and I do recommend setting up specific people, so like 1 or 2 people who will always be sitting on the towers and do not attack the boss, As you can see, I have been on the towers for this rotation, so you'll see the perspective of how the tower taker works. Previously, I've been a damage dealer, but for those, you might find older videos of me there. For this one, I will be the tower dealers, and the note for tower damage dealers is you do not actually need to do damage in itself. The tower does not have a specific amount of HP. It only counts the hits that you do, meaning that to successfully take towers, you need to do units that, first of all, for supports, boost your attack speed. So for me, I have brought the Biladion, the Light Inugami, which his third skill basically boosts attack speed of every unit. I also have 2 units that do double hits on their basic attacks, meaning that it will be twice as efficient to take the tower. I don't really care about the damage. My vampire is like level 60, he's not skilled up, it doesn't matter to me. The only thing that matters is that he does a lot of basic attacks for me, and he does it frequently, allowing me to take the tower that way. And basically, for the towers, you will need to start taking them when they hit around 70% towards one side. Don't do it too early, because if you push it too far, the boss may convert to the dark phase, and by the time he converts, the bar will be pushed way too far, and you will not be able to take the guards and take the other tower in time, leading the boss to ultimate and once again entering that enhanced phase. So for the tower takers, start taking the tower when the gauge hits a little bit more around here. I would say is a decent point to take the tower, because remember that you will need a few seconds to still take the tower. And yeah, by the end, once you balance out the gauge, the push gauge should be towards the middle, but better to be towards the side that you have pushed. So let the light side be a little bit higher than the dark side by the time you're done pushing. And yeah, that's about the towers. Basically, when the light side is filling up, you hit this tower to balance out for the dark side. When the boss switches to the dark side, you do the same thing on the other side, so you kill the guard. And when the boss pushes too much to the dark side, you basically hit that other tower and you balance it out towards the light side. And now we'll jump more into the boss itself. So as you can see, the boss starts with 100% HP. As you can see, there's also a lot of debuffs on it. This is the main reason why you want a lot of damage dealers that scale with debuffs. And yeah, let's look at the fight itself. I'll try to explain the various attacks that the boss does, which ones you should dodge, which ones you shouldn't dodge. So first of all, okay, there we go. I'll start from the very beginning, because I was able to see all of the attacks pretty well, especially when standing on the side next to the tower. So first of all, there will be this attack which shoots in 4 different directions. This attack is not too deadly, it doesn't do that much damage, and all it does is defense break all of your units. So it's still good to dodge it. However, do not be worried if you do get hit by this attack, as it's definitely not deadly at all. And if we move further, there will be this spin attack. Nope, there's another one of those. Come on, there we go. This will be the spin attack. Basically, it sort of covers 2 sides of the circle, leaving a very small safe zone in here. So you can see there is a safe zone at the top, and there's a safe zone right here at the bottom. This spin attack is also not too deadly. It is the most beneficial effects, I believe. So it will lower the damage of your damage dealers, and it also applies undercoverables. So you will not be able to heal, but this attack will definitely not kill you, especially if you have at least some tank stats on you. And then moving further, then there will be this attack which shoots pretty similar to when there was like 4 sides, but only to one side. And I was actually very unlucky that it targeted me. So this attack is pretty scary, and you should dodge it, because if you do not, first of all, you will be knocked up, and second of all, you will receive a very nasty debuff called mana regen down, meaning that your mana regen will be slowed significantly, pretty much disturbing a lot of ability to use your souling skills, meaning that while these units will still be able to use their skills pretty efficiently, the unit that's soul linked will pretty much not be able to use as many abilities for it. Now the next ability is sort of a protective ability from the boss. So I call it the smash ground. I'm not sure what the exact name of it is, but basically it has a lot of effects, so I'll showcase right here. The boss will sort of spin and smash the ground, leaving a shockwave. During this, the boss will remove all of the harmful effects it has on it. It will apply immunity, so you will need a stripper. Luckily for us, the buff got removed within like milliseconds, so it didn't hurt us much. It will also give you attack speed down, slowness. It will give you cools down slowness, so it will be very annoying to get hit by it, and there's a very low chance that you will dodge it. So you do need some cleansers on your team, because if you do not cleanse your debuffs, your damage will drop by a lot, and your cooldowns will drop by a lot, meaning that not only your sustainability but also your damage will drop by a lot. So make sure to have a few cleansers. Some decent ones are one of the keenest elements. I think the wind one cleanses. There's also cleansers like Chloe, there's like the water epic priest, and there's many more. I'm not gonna name all of them here, but just look up if any of your units have cleanse and make sure to bring a few of those. And now, as time goes on, the boss will keep switching from light to dark and vice versa, meaning that you will need to go hit the second guard and hit the other tower from the fight. And as you can see here in just a second, once this happens, the energy will be balanced out as long as it has been towards the light side. If it was too far into the dark side, you will be a bit at a disadvantage. This is why you don't want to take towers too much, because that way if it switches, you will be pretty toasted. So as you can see, during the fight, for us it usually happens at like after minute 50 or minute 55. So the boss will basically says different energy surrounds her. The boss switches, as you can see, energy goes towards the dark side, and it will be start pushing towards the dark side now. And during this, the tower taker, as well as pretty much like the whole team, should go and focus the other guard, because without taking the guard you are not able to take the tower, and without taking the tower you will not be able to balance out the energy. So most of you or all of you should be going towards the guard, and once the guard is dead, the tower taker once again has the ability to take the tower. If you see that the energy has been pushed a bit too much, do help the tower taker with the first tower. After that, he'll definitely have enough time to take it by himself, or the two people who are taking it. The very first one you can consider helping, because you do need that tower pushed ASAP. Otherwise the boss may launch the ultimate phase. But yeah, looking forward, as you can see, the tower taker will start focusing the other tower to push the dark side towards the balance. And yeah, and for the boss, quickly look at the boss attacks right here. You'll see, of course, half of it is cut off, but the attack is very similar to the one that shoots into 4 sides. This one shoots into 8 sides, and this attack is extremely deadly. This one, you should do everything you can to dodge this. First of all, this attack will strip all of your buffs. Second of all, it will give you knockback. Third of all, it will give you mana down. And most importantly, it deals very high damage, and usually your damage dealers will die if they get hit by this. I know that my Karambit and my Naomi, when I use them during this phase, usually get one shot doing it, and both of them had like 35,000 HP and decent defense. So definitely, if you are able to, make sure to dodge this attack, as there will be a lot of casualties doing it. And now another attack, this one is a little harder to dodge as well, especially if you're standing a bit further away from the boss. The boss will shoot this big circle, but there will be these 4 lines in like a cross that are safe, so you must stand in those. If you do not, getting hit by this isn't the worst thing. What will happen is all of your buffs will be stripped, and you will get some damage over time effects like poison and burn. So if possible, try to dodge this. If not, well, it's not the worst thing that will happen, but it will slightly impact your team as well. And now another attack that the boss will do, eventually he will sort of start these dashes into one side. As you can see right here, it slowly starts charging this pretty big range, and once it's done, it dashes towards it. It will teleport back to one of the original locations and then do a second dash. And during these dashes, they're not too scary as well. However, I do recommend dodging them, because if you don't, your units will receive this effect called fear, which basically means it's like sort of a reverse provoke, meaning that your units will start running away from the boss, and you cannot control it. Even if you start walking towards the boss, the feared unit will walk away from the boss, I mean, not allowing him to participate in the battle. So do try to dodge this. It's pretty easy to dodge because the charge time is a few seconds and the range isn't too big. So there's that. And now this is the main reason that I mentioned why you want to start hitting the energy when it's a bit further down on the dark side. As you can see, I started hitting it quite early. It was in the dark side, but it was pretty close to the center. And what happened now is, by the time I was done damaging the tower, the boss pretty much like 1 second earlier converted back to the light phase, meaning that he already had the bar pushed towards the dark side, towards the light side, I mean. And after hitting this tower, it pushed it even further, and by that time it was too late to recover because we simply didn't have enough time to kill both the guards and the tower, and the boss's bar got filled and we entered the ultimate phase. So as you can see, hitting the tower, it's still in the dark phase. I made the mistake of hitting the tower too early. This is why you should wait. And as you can see, the tower is close to being dead. The boss converts to the light side and I hit the tower on top of that. As you can see, the bar is pretty much fully filled to the light one. And even if we all grouped up on the mini boss and on the towers, it was simply too late to do it. We did kill it, but you will see that the boss actually got into the first enhance phase, and during the first enhance phase, he will shoot this huge ultimate. The only way to dodge the ultimate is to stand behind the towers, so either this one or the one on the left side. As you can see, this attack will cover the whole arena. The attack itself isn't too deadly. As you can see, there was one unit, I'm not sure if, yeah, it was my Karambit. So he will receive defense break, heal block, he will receive root, meaning he won't be able to move, and your HP will be permanently destroyed, meaning that even if you heal to full, he will be stuck at like 70% or so. So make sure to not get hit by that. And since this is also an enhance phase, it means that the boss now takes less damage, he deals more damage, and if it happens on a higher level, it will be very deadly. For us, luckily, it did happen on the highest level, but it happened at the very end, so we were still able to damage the boss down to around 50% and finish him off in the second run. So yeah, that was super lucky. If it happened earlier, like at the second or the third minute, there was probably no way we would be able to beat this boss, unfortunately. So yeah, it was a bit of a blame on me for not timing it right, but yeah, you learn from mistakes, and now it will be a bit easier to manage it that way. So make sure to not hit it too early, otherwise the same thing will happen, and mixed in with some bad luck, it could be toasty. And yeah, pretty much when the 5 minutes for you are over, you will see that there's like 4 seconds left, 3. You can be in the fight, your guildists will still be in the fight if they entered a little bit later, but you will lose the battle. You will be brought into the lobby, and in the background you will see that a few are still fighting, those especially who entered a few seconds later. But once the 5-second timer is out for you, the battle will end, and you will need to regroup, set a specific time when you enter for the second time, and do so as well. And this is also why you don't re-enter, because there are only 2 entries per person, and if you re-enter, you will be losing the second entry, and not only will you be hitting the boss solo without the help of your teammates will also not have any help from you, so that just overall ruins the experience for everyone. So if you die early, make sure to wait in the lobby. If you die at the time, make sure to wait for everyone to finish the fight. Even if you see that there are people in the fight, it will be those who entered a bit later. And once you're done, regroup, set a new time, and enter the stage once again. And yeah, I believe that about covers the whole Guild Wars topic, not Guild Wars, Guild Raid topic. If you do have any questions, make sure to drop them below. I'll try to answer them to my best ability, at least from what I know about the boss. And yeah, if you enjoyed, make sure to drop a sub for more content like this. A guide to the White Shadow Castle dungeon is coming within 1 to 2 days from now. And yeah, peace.